We later found out it was. On that fateful day at the pub at the Paddington train station, we ordered some drinks, some pints, and caught up. Casey had a big smile on her face and told me many stories. On the train ride back to Oxford, like the tattletale I am, I quickly texted my wife. Casey met this guy, and they were flying all around Europe on those cheap European flights, and even scootering around Greece and islands on the Vespa. She immediately texted back, OMG, call me now, all caps. You see, Di and I have watched Case grow up into this absolutely sweet, amazing woman, but in our hearts she will always be our little girl. Casey is always a sweet, curious, and determined child, constantly wanting to experience new places and take on different challenges. It was this determination that led her to insist that she be the only girl on the boys' Little League team. Insist that she master skiing and snowboarding at an early age. Insist that she pass out beers to the handicapped finishers at the 2003 New York City Marathon. She was only 9 at the time, and God knows where she got those beers. She seemed to be good at whatever she applied herself to, but the only exception perhaps is her short-lived stint as a clarinetist and a drummer. But hey, we can't be good at everything, especially if you try those two things at the same time. During COVID, Casey, Harry, Di, and I hunkered down at our home in Rhode Island to ride out the pandemic. Throughout the year, we shared countless bonfires on the beach, board game nights, gourmet dinners by the fire, endless Netflix binges supplemented by jars and jars of Nutella and ice cream. It was during this time that I really learned how to read Harry. I now know that when he gifts me cigars and fine wine, that I will soon be asked to babysit the cat. I now know that face he makes while bluffing while playing the board game Chameleon. Believe me, I know that face. Adam knows what I'm talking about. Of course, some of what I tell you is exaggerated. Anyone who knows me knows that I tend to digress into hyperbole, especially when given the stage and a couple drinks. But still, I often worry that we pushed him too far. With all these things we made him do during that year, a lesser man would have surely cracked under all this pressure. But not Harry. He did not even complain once, and he came through with flying colors. But then, one day, totally out of the blue, he came up to me and asked me, Frank, do you want to go camping? I immediately thought, was I imagining it, or did he just ask me this while using his chameleon bluffing face? I'm embarrassed to admit, but I was a bit suspicious. So I clarified, oh, do you mean with Case and Di? He leaned over, looked me directly in the eye, and said, nope. Just you and me. My suspicion turned to concern when I found out that the campsite was on a deserted desert island in the middle of the Long Island Sound. The next day, we met at the Connecticut shore and loaded up a leaky old plastic 1970s two-seater kayak that Harry rented. Prior to this point, I worried that Harry was spending a lot of money on gear for this trip, but that day, as I looked down at that sad little plastic kayak, I was pretty confident he had it. In the space between the two seats of the kayak, we bungee corded 2 tents, 2 coolers, 2 backpacks, grilling apparatus, 2 sleeping bags, and much firewood. And we started out on the 2-hour journey. Sitting in the back of the kayak with all that gear, I could not see a thing. The channel was very busy that day. Harry had to yell directions. Frank, row faster, here comes the sailboat. Frank, faster, faster, incoming tugboat. 2 hours later, we arrived very much exhausted and soaking wet. We pitched our tents on the beach, started a fire to dry off, and Harry made a fantastic gourmet meal. We drank some beers, smoked some cigars, and shared some stories, and watched the great sunset. Soon it was dark and time to crash. I was so exhausted I fell asleep immediately. About 2 o'clock in the morning I woke. I heard some people walking around outside my tent. I quickly grabbed my iPhone and turned on the flashlight and reached into my backpack for that Aquanet-sized can of bear spray I secretly stashed there. I peeked out. To my shock and horror, I saw a gang of obese rabid raccoons all standing upright on 2 legs, looking at me with their beady red eyes. Yikes. Needless to say, that night I got very little sleep. The rabid raccoon movable feast continued all around the campsite all night long. The next day I joined Harry at the fire pit for breakfast, pulsating with adrenaline. I told him how I so fearlessly and bravely defended the base camp from those rabid raccoons. And you know, he didn't know what the hell I was talking about. He slept through the entire thing. It was at this point that I highly suggested we cut short our planned stay at the Rabid Raccoon Beach Club and Resort. I wanted to get the hell out of there. These raccoons were like really freaking me out, and I was really running out of bear spray. Harry finally agreed. We bungee corded all the gear back to our sad little yellow kayak and started off on our departure. While paddling back, I think it was someplace just about at the halfway point, I thought to myself, you know, I don't think that during my entire lifetime, anyone has ever asked me to go on a camping trip this exotic before. You know, I think Casey just might have really found a good one here. Harry, you are a true son to us, and we could not be happier that Casey has chosen you to spend her life with you. Casey, you are such an incredible person. I'm so proud to be your dad. I love you so much. At this time, I would like everyone to join me in the toast. Yes. But first, I just think it might be appropriate to lead in with a quote from one of the most influential British poets of the 20th century. You might have heard of him, Paddington Bear, who once said, I think I may now paint a family portrait. That is, if I have enough paint left for all the wonderful smiles and tears of joy I see in this room today. To the bride and groom, Casey and Harrison!